Wrapping up hour number one of the lunch break. Appreciate you being here today on the Thursday edition of the program. Huge Friday show for you tomorrow. We got Schubert's 6 picks to make, although it's only 4 picks. But we'll make our picks tomorrow. Huge week last week, 5-1. I have not taken the victory lap that I deserve to take on that. 5-1 in the playoffs. We lost the first game of the entire weekend and then rattled off the remaining 5. Huge weekend for us, so hope you followed along if you did, because other than Week 18, which, again, we warned you ahead of time, do not follow us on Week 18. That is not the suggestion. We've been, the second half of the season, have just been on fire, and it continued last week with a 5-1 postseason record, and we'll hope to continue that with our 4 picks tomorrow on the show. So we'll get you ready for everything divisional round tomorrow. We'll make our picks there. Huge Football Friday edition of the show. But let's get back to the Thursday edition of the show, and let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals because it is mock draft season. We've got the Senior Bowl coming up right around the corner. For those of you watching on YouTube, I've got my Senior Bowl hat on here today. Scouting Combine, free agency is going to come and go, and then we are going to be left with my favorite day in all of sports, and that is day one, night one of the NFL Draft. And the Arizona Cardinals are going to be on the clock in the first round, and they're going to have a decision to make. And so far, there is a common theme that is emerging among a bunch of mock drafts. And let's face it, it's not difficult to come to this conclusion, but you're seeing a lot of these mock drafts end up with the Cardinals taking a pass rusher in the first round, acquiring a rookie edge rusher with their first round pick. And again, it should not come as a surprise. We know how important that position is. It is a part of the 5 pillars, and it is the only part of the 5 pillars that is completely unoccupied. The other 4 pillars, you've got at least somebody there. Quarterback, Kyler Murray. Wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. Left tackle, Paris Johnson Jr. Corner, Garrett Williams. You have a pillar. You have a player at every other pillar so far. Edge, I'm leaving the dramatic pause in there. There's nobody. Doesn't exist. And so it's not a surprise that somebody would look at where the Cardinals are at, what plagued them last year, and what plagued them last year was inconsistency when it came to getting after the quarterback. You got to have pressure in this league, man. Look at the quarterbacks that are going to be playing this weekend. Jalen Hurts, Matt Stafford, Jaden Daniels, Jared Goff, C.J. Stroud, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Name me the scrub. Name me the bad quarterback on that list. You can't. Those are all really good quarterbacks. You want to throw those guys off in the postseason. You want to make them look like the way Jordan Love looked, the way Justin Herbert looked, the way those guys looked in the postseason. You got to be able to throw them off platform. You have to be able to get consistent pressure and get them off rhythm, off timing. Now, some of those guys, you get out in space, it's almost as bad as having them in the pocket. But you got to get an offense off script, out of rhythm. And the way you do that is with pass rush. You have to get after the quarterback. You have to have a bona fide stud. And so here is where I'm going to push back on the entire draft narrative of drafting an edge rusher. Are you going to be able to tell me with 100% certainty that a team that has the mandate, whether it has been told to them or not, we all know what the mandate is for this team. 4 wins, 8 wins, you got to be above 500 and make the playoffs. So we all know what they have to accomplish next season. So with that mandate, do you think the Arizona Cardinals want to get to a place where their biggest hole, their biggest need on defense, they are filling with a rookie? Is that the right way to do this? Because, and I hate to pile on them, we talked about him a little bit earlier in the week, but there was no doubt, slam dunk, no doubt. One of my favorite phrases in draft circles, run the card to the podium. Not even a second thought. There wasn't even anybody else got an idea. Marvin Harrison Jr. the pick. And he was supposed to be slam dunk, no doubt, super high floor, super high ceiling. He's got a Hall of Fame wide receiver as a dad. Just going to be an instant stud. How great was his rookie season? So that player, that prospect that was supposed to be can't miss. Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback was supposed to be can't-miss, franchise-altering, generational talent. I think Jacksonville fans are still waiting to see that. You see flashes of it, but you don't see it consistently enough. You've got a playoff mandate in 2025. You can't tell me your best way of getting there is the most important position of need for you this offseason you address with a rookie. You can't convince me that that's how this should go. You want to draft a pass rusher in the first round to get a young player in the door? I got no problem with that. But you better be making the big splash in free agency. You better be calling up the Raiders to see if they want to move on from Max Crosby. You better be seeing if Myles Garrett is freed up in Cleveland. You better be making those phone calls. That's where the splash has to come from. You can't walk into 2025 and say, oh, no, we solved the edge problem. We spent the first-round pick on it. You told me you solved the wide receiver problem, and while I still think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a stud here in this league and showed everything that you wanted to see from him in the second half down the stretch, he did not have the rookie campaign that we all thought he could. And so if you get that type of production out of your edge pass rusher in the first round, to go along with Darius Robinson, who, let's face it, it's basically going to be a rookie season all over again for him. That's what you're going to present as your ability to get after the quarterback. Not going to fly. Certainly not going to fly here. You've got to do more. You've got to get multiple guys into that room. You have to get multiple players of a high caliber into that room. You got to make the big splash. Now, there are names out there in free agency. I don't know if I would describe any of them as a big splash, but there are names out there in free agency that you can go out and get that at least give you a veteran presence to pair with that youngster, pair with that rookie. But when we get to night one of the NFL draft and the Cardinals are on the clock, they better have somebody already on the roster, already on the depth chart at that position. Because you don't just need one pass rusher. You need multiple pass rushers, because you decided against making the big splash, or at least a bigger splash, not a full-blown cannonball into the pool, but maybe a belly flop. You decided against that with your actions at the NFL trade deadline. And one could argue that that decision led to what we saw in the second half, or at least post-bye. One could argue that not doing more at the deadline, team ran out of gas. Team didn't have that secret sauce, the special recipe to get after the quarterback and help them stay in some of these football games. So this has to be priority 1, 2, and 3. And I know T. Higgins, I get it. Trust me, we're driving the bus on that. We are speeding down the highway at 85, driving past everybody waving. T. Higgins on the Cardinals next year. You kidding me? But pass rush is more important, because you invested last year in Marvin Harrison Jr., and you expect that jump in year 2. Now, you need to get him a running mate, and it needs to be T. Higgins. But you don't have really anything in-house when it comes to a pass rusher. And so you can't get to draft night and make a pick and go, we're good. You can't sit back, kick your feet up on the desk, and say, mission accomplished. We achieved our goals this offseason. No. The moment the new league year opens, and the moment that you're able to make phone calls and have these conversations, I'm on the phone with Vegas. I want them to see my name on the caller ID so much they get annoyed and they consider blocking me. Those are the lengths that I want to go to try to get Max Crosby. Myles Garrett. Not necessarily a true pass rusher, but I'd call Tennessee and say, hey, listen, you're doing a full reset here. You got the number 1 pick. You're taking a quarterback. Jeffrey Simmons available? I would be so annoying and obnoxious that teams would consider reporting me to the league and saying this dude won't take no for an answer. That's how annoying I'd be. Because do you want to know why I'm making this point? The Giants last year did this. They got their pass rusher. They traded for Brian Burns from the Carolina Panthers. Do you know? And for those of you who watched the offseason Hard Knocks that followed the New York Giants, you know this answer. But for those of you out there that maybe didn't consume the Hard Knocks, like me, I do not consume Hard Knocks. That's a hot take of mine. I'm out on Hard Knocks altogether. But I saw the clip. I know what happened. Do you know when that deal first got put together? The Senior Bowl. Do you know when the Senior Bowl is? Less than a month away. That's where these things start to materialize. That work starts right now. And so if I'm Monty Ossenfort, I might consider going to Mobile, wearing a big sandwich board that says, I want to talk to you about your pass rushers. That's how obnoxious I would be about it. because that's how important of a need it is for the Arizona Cardinals. That's how important it is. I'm making phone calls. I'm sending text messages. I'm wearing the sandwich board to the Senior Bowl. I mean, I am going all out. I might even rent a plane and fly it over the stadium there in Mobile to let everybody know my intentions. You can't leave this to a 20, 21, potentially 22-year-old kid that you get on draft night. You can't do it. You have too high of expectations. You went 8-9 this year. You were in first place after 10 games. And you collapsed down the stretch. I think it's fair. We can call it what it is. They collapsed post-bye. There's no room for that this season. You got to hit the ground running, because one of the reasons why you were 6-4 at the bye is you gave away a couple of games. You gave away that game in Buffalo. You made critical mistakes in Green Bay that made that game non-competitive. You have to hit the ground running next season. And the way you do that is not by a rookie coming in and getting up to speed in the NFL. I understand you got to think long term and you want to build a winner. I'm not against the idea of taking a pass rusher with my first round pick. I'm against that being my one true answer to that position for 2025. That is what I am against. So I have no problem with your mock drafts talking about it, but that cannot be the only move. That cannot be the first move that the Cardinals make at that position.